You've got the Pittsburgh Penguins. As of what we can see right there, just 7 points out of the wild card right now. Do you think they have enough gas left in the tank to make one more push and make the playoffs this year? They missed the playoffs by 1 point last year.
No, I definitely think they, hopefully they learned something about last year going down the stretch, but they have the games in hand right now. They've only played 46, so that's going to help them. 3-4 on some in the division. That will help them a ton. You know, you look at all their numbers, and they're pretty good. They're on the plus side of most things. Unfortunately, the one thing that's letting the Penguins down this year is their power play.
Yeah.
And it's right down near the bottom. It just has not clicked at all. You think getting Erik Karlsson and having all that star power with Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, and company that you would get it done, EJ. But that's been the one thing that they haven't been able to do is score on the power play.
Yeah, and, you know, it is funny because you get Erik Karlsson, and everybody thinks, you know, Erik Karlsson's a wonderful offensive player, and he is a guy that he's won multiple Norris trophies, had over 100 points last year. Yep. But if you start to pick through the teams that he played for, with the years he was there on the power play, they weren't all that good. I mean, we did the work on it, and going back to his time in Ottawa and San Jose, they weren't that good. So they acquired a guy, they put him on the power play, it hasn't worked. They're trying to fix things, and this is, Bob, you covered the Penguins for years and years. They've had years when they had really good power plays. This is not one of them. If they could get just a little bit more out of that power play in the second half of the season, you mentioned it, games in hand, absolutely could get there, especially if Jarry and Nedeljkovic play well for them.
Well, it was a player out of my hometown, Mark Savard, who played some great power plays in the National Hockey League. And actually, St. Louis brought him in a couple of years ago to work specifically on their power play. And, you know, we were talking about one team. He said, there might not be enough puck to go around. Puck? No, what do you mean? Oh, yeah. And then he started explaining to me, well, all these guys want the puck. Yeah. They all want to touch it. They all want it to go through them. And I think now that the Pittsburgh, they have moved Karlsson and Malkin to the second power play. So they're trying to get a little diversity there, trying to spread it out. And, yeah, not everybody can touch that black puck there because I know they all want to. Yeah. They all want to get their cookies, but the idea is to win.
And one quick thing, Jamie, from what I watched, we've done a couple of tapes on it. I think they've done a better job at moving the puck more quickly and trying to one-time plays, even if it's a pass, if it's a shot, just getting the puck off the stick more quickly. It was too many stick handles, too much dusting. If they could do more of that, they'll have a better chance for success.
Not how you start, it's how you finish. If they can get that power play going towards the end of the season, that's only good things to come for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Things are going okay for the New York Rangers. They're first place in the Metro right now. But you go back to January 1st, they were the top team in the NHL. And since then, they've kind of just been average. They've lost 4 of 6. But I know you caught up with Peter Laviolette at the All-Star break. And you mentioned something. He said, don't jinx the winning streak right now.
Yeah, it was funny because Bob and I both had we were down in the hallway prior to the game, and we got to talk to a couple of different individuals, and Peter Laviolette was one of them. So it was nice to catch up with Peter. I asked him, I grew up in Westchester County, New York. He's living there now. We talked a little bit about that. So then I said, hey, what's going on your team? You guys going to get it together? And he goes, oh, don't jinx me, man. Don't bring me down. We've won our last game, one in a row.
7-2 over Ottawa before the break.
Yeah, he said, we're streaking right now. So, you know, listen, I want to bring Peter down. He's got another chance tonight to make it 2 in a row. But, yeah, I mean, the Rangers, it's an interesting year because they're in first place in their division, right?
Doesn't feel good.
And they're not in first place by a point. They're in first place by a couple of points. They've got a little cushion. But you're right. You talk to Ranger fans and people who watch the team all the time, and, boy, it seems like they're in last place. But they've had one in a row.
Yeah, they have. We'll Trouba's out, unfortunately, serving that second game of the 2-game suspension against the Avs. They're going to miss him. You know, Kakko's just a guy that is just amazing to me. I've always loved his skills. I always think that he's going to step up sometime, someplace. And this may be the time for him. You know, they're missing some players there. Heedle's gone down, right? So, you know, it's time for a guy like Kaapo Kakko, to step up and say, I'm on this stage, the National Hockey League stage. I think he's ready for it. I really do. He's got a big body. He's got those great hands, knows how to protect the puck. I think it's his time, and they're going to need guys like that to step up.
Yeah, speaking of the big stage, Igor Shesterkin, an all-star. Maybe that kickstarts his second half of the season because he's not putting up quite the numbers that were expected from Igor Shesterkin, and those numbers and that bar has been set super high, based on what he's done in the past. All right, that's a look at the Metro. Let's talk the Atlantic right now. Throw up the Atlantic Division standings here, and the Bruins, the top team for the second consecutive year, 71 points. They've got a nice little cushion between them and the Florida Panthers, and then you have the Bolts, who have been on a tear of late. I think they've won 8 of their last 9 games, and they've jumped ahead of the Maple Leafs, and again, are top 3 right now in the Atlantic Division. What do we make of the Tampa Bay Lightning?
Well, I would say sleep on the Lightning at your own peril, right? Because, I mean, the top part of their team, and it's like a lot of teams in the league right now because the cap is so tight, right? We've went through this whole period of time. Next year, there's going to be a little bit more room to operate within. They've had to lose a number of players over the last couple of years. They just couldn't afford to keep them. But the top guys of their group, I mean, Kucherov leading the league in scoring. Braden Point's got 25 goals, playing really well. Hedman, we know what he could do. Stamkos still productive. Hagel, a really good player. I mean, you got Nick Paul and Cirelli, who are kind of, middle six type players that are good contributors. They got Vasilevsky back in goal. They still have Sergachev on defense. They still have a number of guys at the top of the lineup. The question for me will be, and to your point about special teams, they kill you on the power play. I mean, that's dynamic. The question is, are they going to get enough out of those bottom six players and those depth defensemen to support what is still a very strong top half of their team?
Yeah, watched a lot of them this year. I really like their team. I think they can really scare somebody. They're 8-2 in their last 10. When the games and the chips are on the line, I think they have the guys. Hedman, how much game does he have left? Like, all these guys are not getting any younger. Age sometimes gets you. And I'm not saying, Hedman's got a lot of games left, but is he playing at the level he played at 3-4 years ago? Can these guys, in a long stretch where you get beat up, they went to a long way for a couple of years, guys. Yeah. That beats you down as a hockey team. It's tough to keep bringing it back each and every year, but I think they've regained that desire to win again, and found out how to get their breaks, and the coaches found out how to kind of supplement guys and those kind of things, and that hunger and that desire to win. When you win a couple of times like they did, you never forget that feeling. And it's something you want back so dearly. And I think those guys have it back. I do believe Vasilevsky is going to have a great second half here. And I like Tampa Bay a lot. Yeah. I have a good feeling about them.
Like you said, sleep on them at your own peril.
That's right.
Let's stay in the state of Florida. How about the Florida Panthers making it a little easier on themselves this year as opposed to what they had to do last year? I mean, down the stretch just to get in by a single point, and then they go all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Is this team better than the team that we saw go to the final a year ago, or are they same? They just learned more about
I think they are a little bit better. I think they're a little deeper. I mean, I think they missed somebody like Radko Gudas, for example. He's kind of a unique player, but he's not a. He's a complementary piece. He's a nice piece to have, but you can replace him with others. And I think they're the best. On paper, I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, JMO. I think when you look at them on paper, compare them to other teams, I think they have all the elements to go all the way and to win the Eastern Conference and maybe win a Stanley Cup. So will they do it? Hard to say. Things change, guys get hurt, guys underperform. But when I look at their team, I look at their four lines, their 6D, their goaltending situation. They're well coached. I think they've got a great chance to win the Eastern Conference this year.
Yeah, and they know what it takes, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of grit, and that's the way they got through last year, is because they just pop you in the nose. They would literally, that was the toughest performance that I saw a group of players at the right time come together. They lost their goaltender, Bobrovsky, for a lot of that run, had to go to a backup.
Yeah, Alex Lyon ended up playing really well. And
he was incredible, and he was a Tiger. And they had to go through, and then they had big beasts on the backside on the blue line. Yeah. We talk about all of them. And at the end, they lost Tkachuk. He went down, he got injured. But those guys were as tough as anybody, and they would fight you, literally fight you, tooth and nail, until they drag you out to the back lot. Yeah. And if you weren't willing to pay the price against them, they beat you, and they beat almost everybody.
Yeah. Well, the Bruins beat everybody in the regular season last year. Yeah. But we know how it played out in round one, upset by those Florida Panthers. Here the Bruins sit pretty again right now, top team in the Atlantic Division. What has to change for the Bees this year? And who saw this year coming based on some of the departures that we saw from a year ago?
Not me, for sure. I mean, when you lose Bergeron and Krejci, your number one and number two centers, off a team that made history, regular season history, with an unbelievable season last year, you don't expect that they're going to get, you're going to expect there's going to be some challenges. And just like, even last year. So they started last season, remember, without McAvoy, without Marchand, with injury, and everybody was worried about him last year, and they reeled off this historic season. the culture that was established there during the Zdeno Chara era and passed on to Bergeron and now to Marchand as the captains of those teams, it's been amazing to watch. That organization, they deserve full marks because there is accountability in that room every day. They bring guys up from the minor leagues. They play well because they're teaching the same things at Providence that they do at Boston. They've got great goaltenders who I think are a big part of this reason for them. They kind of keep the Bruins in games when they're not playing as well. And then they kill you with the star players come up with a big play, a Pastrnak or a Marchand or Charlie Coyle's playing great now. Their D is good. It's a really hard team to deal with. Now in the playoffs, could be a little different because you're really relying on that goaltender then in some of those situations. And
can I ask you something?
Which guy do they play?
Well, can I ask you something? Because last year they didn't. They went with Linus Ullmark.
I'm playing both guys.
6, and then Jeremy Swayman came in to try and save the day in Game 7.
I'm playing both guys.
Okay.
That's who they are.
Yeah.
If it's me, Bob,
I'm playing both guys.
I'm going to just start.
It's easy to say it now. I know when the game's on the line they didn't. But I honestly,
That's who they are, right?
But that's who they are. That's who they were during the regular season. Then they tried to go a different direction. I think you always learn. If your coaches and players, if shame on you if you don't learn. But Marchand, to me, he's a guy that can change a game in so many ways. More than any player in the National Hockey League, I think he's one of the guys. Now, I think Crosby's a little like that. But Marchand, he can score a shorthanded goal, a power play goal. He can pop you in the nose. He can draw a penalty. He can block a shot. He can do absolutely anything you want. This guy is, for years, has been kind of an unsung superstar in the National Hockey League. I don't know if we give him enough credit because of some of the other stuff that he does, the extracurricular, but we're talking about hockey here. That counts in hockey.
I would say 31 other teams
would love him.
Would love
they hate
to
him,
have
but
Brad
they'd love to have
Marchand.
him.
Fans probably don't love him, but I mean, he's one of those guys that just helps you win. But if I'm them, and unless if something changes and one guy really overperforms or underperforms, then you make it. But as it is right now, both guys healthy, both guys playing well. Probably game 1 I'm with Swayman because he's been a little bit better of the two. Game 2 I'm going with Ullmark, and I'm gonna ride it from there and see where I'm at. But that's where I'm starting. And then you see how things play out.
I like it.
All right, that's how things might play out in the East.